In this video, we're going to be talking about how to evaluate expressions using the order of operations. So to get started with this video, we're going to talk about shoes. Now this is going to sound kind of weird, but let's talk about how do you put on shoes. Might be something you do on a daily basis, hopefully, maybe during quarantine, not so much. But let's think about the order we use to put on our shoes. Now, if you're looking at a foot, well, I've got a foot here, you may just think, well, I need to just put on my shoe. There we go, we got a shoe on. But typically with shoes, you like to wear socks. So if I put on a shoe and then put on a sock, that would look kind of weird. And I don't think you've seen anybody walking around with socks on their shoes. So this order is clearly wrong. This is not how we put on shoes. So let's look at it the right way. So if I were to put on shoes, what would I do first? Well, I would start by putting on my sock. There we go, I've got my sock on there. And then I put on my shoe. And that looks much better. That is the typical order that we like to put on our shoes. We put our socks, then we put our shoes, and we're good to go. In math, we have the same idea. We start with putting on our socks and then putting on our shoes. And for us, we have this thing called the order of operations, and that's what we use. So an order of operations was, some people have heard of PEMDAS, and that's what I'm going to base this off of. So we have parentheses is how we're going to start. Then we've got exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, subtraction. Now, in elementary school, you probably saw this, PEMDAS, something like that, to illustrate order of operations. This is simply the order in which we do things. Now, if you look at how I have it written here, this may be a little bit different, because you notice I put multiplication and division on the same line. And I also put addition and subtraction on the same line. The reason for that is these are basically at the same level. When we're doing multiplication and division, we want to work from left to right. So I have a problem that is just multiplication and division. We want to work from left to right. And the same is true for addition and subtraction. If I have a bunch of addition and subtraction, I want to work from left to right. And that will help me evaluate the expression correctly. So let's jump into a couple of problems, and we're going to evaluate some expressions. Actually, before I do that, let's talk about one more definition. We have this thing called an exponent and a base, just as a review. So if you forget what an exponent is, well, let's write an example. So let's say I have 4 to the third power. Okay, now if, this maybe been a while, but here's what this means. This means this number up here, this is called the exponent, the 3 here, the exponent. It tells us how many times we are going to multiply together what is called the base. And the base is this number right here. So since my exponent is 3, what it means is I'm going to take 4 and multiply it by itself 3 times. So I'm going to do 4 times 4 times 4 because that's my exponent. So 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 is 64. So just as a refresher, that's what an exponent is. You take the base, the number written big, multiplied by itself the number of times of the small number up here, which is the exponent. Now let's get into some practice problems. So we're going to evaluate these and follow our order of operations. And I'm going to jot that on the side. So I've got it. And notice how I'm writing this. Multiplication, division are the same, addition, subtraction. So let's go from left to right. Well, I don't have parentheses. I don't have exponents. So I'm going to go straight to the multiplication and division. So let's see, 3 times 4, that is 126 plus 1. And then I've got, look to my next level. So my next level here, I've got addition and subtraction. So 126 plus 1 would be 127. So not too bad. Just following order of operations. There were only 2 things I had to do there, so nothing crazy. Okay, so the next one. So I start with parentheses. Well, I don't have any parentheses, so I go straight to exponents. So I have 2 exponents here. So 4 to the 4th power. That is 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 times 4, which is 256. divided by 16 squared. So 16 times 16, which is also 256. So I did my exponents first, my one exponent, my other exponent. Next, I'm going to go into multiplication and division. Well, 256 divided by 256 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0 because that's my only operation left over is that addition subtraction. Next, I've got 3 times the sum 5 plus 42. So if I follow my order of operations, I'm going to start with my parentheses, and I'll do this on the side here. So I have 5 plus 42 is 47. And 47 times 3 is 141. So that is my only operation left, and I'm good to go. So here are 2 more examples, a little bit more complex here. So I want you to pause the video, try the one on the left, and I'll explain in just a moment. So let's give this a go. So if I'm following order of operations, and let's go ahead and write that out again. I start with my parentheses. So I see here I have 2 sets of parentheses, so I'm going to start there. So I've got 5 times 4 is 20, minus 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, all over 5 squared. Now when I'm doing this, I'm not going to do everything at once. I'm just going to deal with each level one at a time. Next, I look at my exponents and I see 5 squared, so that's 5 times 5, which is 25. So I have 20 minus negative 6 over 25. Next, I look for multiplication and division. Well, I don't have any, so I'm going to go straight to addition and subtraction. So I see here 20 minus negative 6. Well, 20 minus negative 6 is the same thing as 20 plus 6, so I get 26 over 25. Now I can simplify this to be 1 and 1/25 if I really want to, but 26 over 25 is a perfectly acceptable answer. Let's try the other one. I want you to go ahead and pause the video, try the one on the right, and I'll go over it here in just a moment. So let's give this a go. So I see here I have multiple sets of parentheses. So when you have multiple sets of parentheses, what you want to do is go to the most interior set of parentheses, the smallest set you've got. So you see here I have 1, 2, 3 sets of parentheses. I'm going to go to the inside set first. So I'm going to rewrite. So I've got 2 parentheses, 3 plus negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. So that's where that came from. And notice I'm rewriting everything else exactly like I have it. So I just did negative 3 times negative 4. Next, I'm going to continue with the innermost set of parentheses, so 2 parentheses. 3 plus 12 is 15, minus 9. Then I continue with my next set of parentheses, so 15 minus 9 would be 6. Now, even though these are called brackets, they still represent parentheses, so I'm still going to do 2 times 6. To wrap it all up because that is my only operation left. Now, the other thing we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be evaluating expressions. Now, in algebraic expressions, remember we reviewed that in a different video, you are going to use variables. They represent unknowns. So what we can do is we can replace them with values. If we know that x represents 4, we can replace it with 4. And so we're going to replace it with a number that's called substitution. And then we're going to work it out using the order of operations. Now, my kind of catchphrase I like to use is you need to be like Oprah. And you could be thinking, well, that's kind of nuts. But in 2004, Oprah very famously gave out a car to every person in her studio audience. And she was up on the stage yelling, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. And so we're going to do something very similar. Now, we're not giving out cars. That would be amazing if we did. But what we're going to be giving out are parentheses. Those are free. We can do that as much as we want. So we're going to evaluate these expressions, and we're going to be like Oprah. We're going to give out parentheses. So here's what I mean. So here I've got 4 divided by n plus 13, and I know that n represents 4. So I'm going to replace this here with a 4. So I do 4 divided by parentheses 4. Wherever you replace the variable, you're going to put a parentheses, and it's going to become important on the next example. Then we just follow our order of operations. Let's write that out again. So we got my order of operations again. So I don't have parentheses, exponents, so I'm going to go straight to dividing. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, plus 13 is 14. Let's do B. So B here, I've got multiple variables that I'm going to evaluate. So I've got x and I've got n. So x is going to be -2 and n is going to be 4. So I have 3 parentheses, 2 parentheses, -2, make sure you put it in the right one, minus 3 parentheses 4 minus 5. Now the reason I'm using parentheses here is because this operation here with the 2x and the 3n is multiplication, and parentheses represents multiplication. So I look inside my parentheses, and inside my parentheses I see multiplication, so I'm going to do that first. So 2 times -2 is -4, minus 3 times 4 is 12. Now I continue with my parentheses, so I see -4 minus 12, so that would be -16, minus 5. So now I do my multiplication. 3 times -16. Let's see, that would be -48, minus 5, and that comes out to be -53. Let's do the last two. So again, I'm going to replace, but make sure I put my parentheses. So xn, so x is -2, n is 4, plus 3 times -2. All right, so inside my parentheses, I have multiplication. So I have, let's see, -2 times 4 is -8, plus 3 times -2. Then I see multiplication here, multiplication there. So I have -40 plus -6. And the only thing left to do is to add, so -40 plus -6 is -46. Now this last one can be tricky. So I'm going to replace my x with -2. Now this is where parentheses become important. I'm only replacing the x, not the squared. So you see how my squared carries down? Plus 4 times -2 minus 10. So let's follow order of operations. So I start with parentheses, and while the only thing in my parentheses is a number. Next, I go to exponents. So what that tells me is I need to do -2 squared. -2 squared. Now in your calculator, you must put parentheses around this negative. So it's -2 times -2, which comes out to be +4. A negative times a negative is a positive. If you don't put the parentheses, it's going to give you a value of -4, which is not correct. So make sure you put parentheses around the negative, otherwise it's going to come out wrong. So I have -2 times 4 plus 4 times -2 minus 10. Now from here, I continue on. I do multiplication. -2 times 4, -8. Again, -2 times 4, -8. And then I just work left to right, since all I have left is addition and subtraction. So I have -16 minus 10 is -26. That's how we use order of operations to simplify expressions and to evaluate algebraic expressions.